Hello, welcome back. I'm the token bird. Who are you?
I am your faithful sidekick.
That's about right. Sincere apologies to your faithful listenership, stroke readership.
Idiots, all of them. Don't worry about
Quite. Reason for the lack of lengthy podcast, even forced him to do little videos. It's because I disappeared up my own arse for a couple of months. So I'm still catching up on what's happened in the world. I think it's something like Derek Chauvin set up a racist Super League, so Mourinho had to go to prison, and Dominic Cummings is now our manager. Am I right?
You're not far off it. It's actually Dominic Cummings' great nephew or niece. I think we have to address both in these challenging times.
Understood. Here's a bit of music. Mourinho's gone.
Yeah, good riddance. Dinosaur.
I'm heartbroken, actually.
Yeah, might be because you're sane. It was a really strange appointment, and I think more or less lots of people said that it was.
I hoped it meant we were going in a more positive direction, as in the club was eventually pulling its finger out and bringing in people who knew how to win stuff.
Yeah, I think it was more along the lines. There was a greater parity between that move and the other stupid move, which was to return Gareth Bale 7, 8, 9 years after he used to be really good. I think it was a commercial exercise that showed the usual depth of understanding that ENIC have applied to everything they've done since they've been in charge. And just in case there's anybody stupid enough to still be following what I write or what I say that wants to have an argument about that, let me just kick your feet at such an angle that you never walk again and you fall over. They didn't put a penny piece of their own money in when they took Tottenham over. It was based on a loan of somewhere in the region of about 22 million quid. I look to be sued by somebody who has an actual solicitor if I've got that wrong. But there was no this, that, the other, and we'll discuss the debt later on. But ENIC, as a force for good at Tottenham, or on the planet,
Aren't.
And this is the killer. And this is the killer, the crunch. This is the brass ring, whatever you want to call it. The thing that people are really going to have to struggle with is that when we discuss the European Super League in 5-6 minutes' time, I'm actually on Levy's side. Because, and this is the other killer in this true crime that we're watching, is that I'm on the side of sanity and rational thought. So when it comes to Daniel Levy, and all those little Beelzebubs that follow him and operate within the club, one of the greatest things, the brilliant things that was said to me, the initial challenges, all those years ago when I was right and everybody else was wrong, was that, what's he done? Has he done something to your sister? You don't like him? And I always made it perfectly clear that everything, all my feelings for him lacked emotion. I didn't have any feelings. I was like a surgeon trying to save the life of a suicide bomber. I didn't have a dog in the race. I've always looked at it from the perspective of, is this good or is this bad? And without doing so while stood on a soapbox claiming to be some ethical or moral super knight in shining armour. Shining. And that's the really expensive stuff. And shining armour you can pick up anywhere. But if you want shining, you have to go out the back for that.
Yeah.
It's imported. Yeah. But that's the deal. And so I think this was, going back to the Mourinho thing, I think Mourinho, I said at the time, or I wrote at the time, blogged at the time, that this was going to be his I can't remember, the Portuguese Pulis Napoleon's Waterloo or something equally convoluted. That this was going to be the thing that saw him off, that finished him.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, to those of us who don't get emotional and don't think on a very, very superficial, shallow level, which is to say, when we see something we don't like, we just shout dinosaur and bus parking. We try to actually afford things a little bit more analysis. Because, sometimes, folks, it isn't really hot and it isn't really cold. It's somewhere in between. And this was the deal with Mourinho, that I couldn't see how it was going to work. And there were limitations with Mourinho. There always have been. And a lot of people spent an awful lot of time regurgitating stuff that we already knew. And the way in which he operated, and the fact that they brought up all of these ghouls from his past, and many of which, Paul Pogba, I mean, there's Exhibit A of somebody you wouldn't want to be stuck in a lift with.
Quite.
Yep. And yet this guy's wheeled out as an expert who can testify and vouchsafe for the fact that Mourinho isn't a very nice person. That's the depth of the character assassination.
Yeah.
But I think it was a stunt, and I think
It was a what?
A stunt.
Okay.
You can stop that. I think it was a stunt, and I think it backfired. And I think just like he hasn't sold any T-shirts on the back of the Bale thing, well, apart from the one you bought, and all that business, I just see it as another thing that hasn't worked. And I've pulled holes, and it's very easy to make me. I can hear myself sounding like a stone thrower, but it's like the NFL. You have a look online. The NFL is not as big as it used to be in the UK, and that's where the stadium is. And I think the guy's got problems.
Yeah. So, too much player power.
Yeah.
Got rid of a bloke who's won lots of trophies.
And the ones that remain, or rather the mob that are still on the payroll, rather brilliantly, in a classic, upside down land of how Levy operates, we're now left with the same players that couldn't keep it going for Pochettino, which I don't entirely blame them for, because they should have been churned. They should have had more new people come in. But these guys whined and bitched about Pochettino's training methods.
Quite.
As the Athletic and numerous other places covered. And now they've done the same thing about Mourinho. And the allegations, you can always spot a really wet allegation because it doesn't really stack up. And so they were saying that, he doesn't train any attacking moves. Well, I tell you something, boys and girls, I may not be the world's greatest footballing coach that the world never got to see. But if I'd have walked into that Tottenham side, the first thing I would have done is worked out how I could fix a defence which had been falling apart since the day we sold Carl Walker.
Leaky colander of defence.
Rubbish defence.
Colanders are meant to be.
But the player power thing is interesting.
It'd be a very good colander if it wasn't leaky. Sorry, you were saying.
Colanders are primarily, they get by on the strength of their holes. Like a sieve.
I have no idea where this is going.
Well, no, I'm just saying. If you don't appear to, well, I know you don't know your way around a kitchen.
That's true.
Perhaps we should move on.
It was a pot noodle.
But the thing with player power, which is almost fascinating, except for I'm telling it, so it'll just murder it.
This is why I have coffee.
Yeah, is the fact that you look at Moyes when he was at
Man United.
Manchester United. I had a personal friend of mine who worked for a major high street bank.
You've got friends.
Yeah, well, like I said, had. Never keep your eye off the text, the tense. But I had a guy, and he told me that a senior player from that era came in, and because the guy was a fan, he was chatting away. And this, you're talking about these high net worth element of conversation. This isn't like Wayne Rooney came in and banked a cheque he got from his mum for his birthday. This was a high net worth conversation they were having, as the bank person and the former Manchester United player. And he told me that there was a UEFA game. A lot of the lads had been out on the slurp the night before, and some of them had even brought beer and booze into the changing room. Those players who'd been there, done that and worn the T-shirt and lifted the trophies didn't have time for Moyes. Yet, a few years go by and David Moyes going to West Ham, goes to West Ham, which isn't full of people who've been...
Our favourite club.
Exactly, one of the most level and balanced...
Love and adore them.
Yeah, nice people. That's how I describe them. If you said to me, what are West Ham people like, I would say they are nice people.
Lovely.
But that's the thing there, that Moisey goes to West Hamsey and...
Winsies.
And he gets the old wins. You know, he's actually making a half go of it. Certainly playing more cohesive football than Mourinho managed to get out of our mob.
Are the players at West Ham better than our players?
Well, I have a confession to make. I was talking to somebody else about football, again, somebody who was elderly and couldn't get away fast enough. But when I nipped into the supermarket earlier, I saw my mate Steve Taxi, who works on the fruit and veg. Yeah. And he's Leeds.
He's Leeds.
And he's the guy I told you. I was in the pub and I had my Tim Sherwood gilet on, and the guy's massive. The guy's massive. I mean, he's built like a
brick.
No, like a bare knuckle fighter.
Oh, okay.
He's a big fella, and his first words to me were, "Sorry, mate, you've got a bit of shit on your jacket." Pointing at the logo. And of course, I stood up and had a beer with him, and we've been pals ever since. But the point is that he was saying about Bielsa, because he's a Leeds United fan, and he was saying that Bielsa was able to take these players that no, they're not going to win the league. They probably won't qualify for European football, but they're not going to get relegated. They're not going to do a Fulham or a Newcastle United. But he's managed to take and. This guy, Steve was saying to me, he's got as much interest in philosophy as your average normal human being. But he was able to talk via an interpreter. So there you go, there's even more convoluted, to players of, shall we say, less than elite capabilities and get decent results from them. Whereas our lot are too busy TikToking and Fortniting and God knows what else.
Well, quite. So we've got a team that's got some amazing players in it, and then a fair few that are just thoroughly pants and a bit too up themselves. And yet somehow we were heading into a European Super League.
Yeah. Well, the European Super League thing... and I'm going to just cadge the notes.
Yes.
Actual notes.
That sounds very professional.
That was a fascinating setup of who was involved in that. Because if you match the biggest clubs in terms of like what they've done and achieved and all the usual sort of metrics, they weren't all in it. There were gaps in the thing, and trying to convey this through the medium of speech, you'll be pleased to hear I'm not going to do that, and I've made it very simple. And if we look at the clubs that did get onto the list, connived their way, for want of a more charitable word, this is current standing as of like today or last week or whatever, but like very, very recent. Barcelona, net, and this is all net debt, €488 million. Real Madrid, €350 million. Juventus, about 50p more. Milan, only €103 million. Manchester United, £4.5 million sterling. Tottenham Hotspur, £604.6 million sterling.
My word.
Arsenal, 108.2 million sterling. So,
how much of that's COVID and how much of that is poorly run football club?
A lot of it is COVID, and you can't emphasise enough, and we've had these conversations before, you need to look beyond the turnstiles ringing, because it isn't just the money of people coming in.
Turnstiles ringing?
Well, you know, I'm trying to put it into a more colourful language than people walking with their barcode in their wallet, in their car case.
I bet they've got rid of the turnstiles, haven't they? Because I haven't even been to. I'm such a rubbish fan. I haven't even been to the new stadium. I bet they don't have the turnstiles anymore. Do
you know something? Let's just clear something.
Fitting through those old turnstiles was great with a great big rucksack on the back. But if they'd have rung as you went round, that would have been really funny.
That's
just going through and it'd go ping. No,
but they used to make that sort of clickety clack noise.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, well, it was all right if you weren't as big as I am. I used to be carried in over the top.
It was more of a squeaky noise as you made your way through.
By my servants and henchmen. But I'll just say, this business of, I'm not a good proper fan because I don't go to the stadium.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the protesters earlier. There were 2 hermaphrodites playing guitars. I mean, this isn't... It was supposed to be a protest and it turned into a busk-off.
North London, innit?
North London.
Darling.
Honestly, I just end it now. I can't even begin to cope with these people. So you've got this European soap league. Well, yeah, look at them. They're a bunch of
soap opera league. The European soap opera league.
Bunch of soapy tramps, soap dodging tramps of clubs that have got more debt than God, and that raises its own questions. And I think the COVID thing, because they've been talking about this Super League thing for ages, and there's a rumour going around that it was discussed in more earnest terms over, say, like the last sort of 5 or 6 years. And in the last 3 years, it's pepped up. I believe, and this is just my insight as a extremely intelligent person, I believe that the COVID thing, they all got on a Zoom call and just said, listen, this is really horrible. Let's just press the button. What's the worst that can happen?
Millennials.
And what's happened is that these woke millennials have happened. They've exploded. And I think it's been a combination of the same people that have learned to communicate by using social media, which is to say they've never had somebody slap them in a pub because some things are so stupid that's nature's way of ironing them out of you.
They've just not been to the right pubs by train stations in Darlington, have they?
Oh, don't. I'm not sure if I've shared that with listeners. It'd be a bit trying to shoehorn that in. But Christmas Eve many years ago, waiting for a train, and World War III kicked off in a pub with 6 people in. And I sat in between them.
Amazingly, you weren't involved.
Yeah, it was the first time. That's what
that had nothing to do with
curiously enough, that's the first thing Interpol said when they arrived. Yeah. But, I went up to the bar to get my change or whatever it was, because I'd walked off without it. And when I came back, my drink was spilt, and there was a footprint on my bag. That's where the epicentre of the action was. There was broken glass. It was mental, absolutely mental.
Welcome to Darlow.
Yeah, but going back to these millennial scumbags,
who've never had a fight in their lives,
couldn't fight their way out of a. Listen, you're going to end up
a Walker's crisp packet left behind by Gary Lineker.
Yeah, but the problem
better anyway.
The problem with these guys, these persons, these individuals, is that I think there's a number of factors at play here. One, they're millennials, so that establishes a few ground rules. Let's not do that. Let's never do that again. Christ. Have you got coffee in there or gin?
I know, I am high on the caffeine, man.
Yeah. So they're millennials. That gives us a few ground rules.
Yep.
Not sure if they're Martha or Arthur. They've got too much time on their hands because of lockdown, because they're all furloughed. They're all marketeers. Who else do I hate? But they're also... I mean, the supermarkets now, since the lockdown lifting of the thing and non-essential retail opening up, supermarkets are empty. So lots of people were just wandering around supermarkets just get out of the house.
Yeah, they've all gone back to Primark.
Because they were losing their minds.
Yeah.
And the protests are effectively a substitute for being locked out football stadiums. And it gives them a chance to go, oh, and to, of course, what do millennials love? They love a cause. And they've almost had it beaten
Cause
out.
and a chorus.
They've almost had it beaten out of them that this thing of tweeting about lighting a candle or a pray for hashtag, that this thing isn't even tolerated by the church. It's just so desperate. But they're now focusing their attention. And do you know something? As far as football goes, do you remember that? Well, we've got a copy of it in the house somewhere. The inverting the pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was the only reference.
Jonathan, what's his name?
Yeah, well, let's not get too deep in this. That was the only reference to a pyramid and football I'd ever heard. But this week, or last week, they're talking about the footballing pyramid as if it's like a sort of welfare structure for other clubs. Oh. And so if we want to say that the European Super League is a complete and utter abomination, that means by default that how things were before was at least, if not perfect, was the status quo. I'm not talking about Rick Parfitt. And so the status quo, that's Marine FC begging. That's Marine FC taking money for the Athletic to put up house numbers on the back of chainmail fences in Merseyside with the Athletic on. Number 16 Scum Street or whatever the thing said. And then the status quo is Marine FC having a Budweiser fridge implanted in their dressing room. And what did they do? They sold sponsorship on their shirts, the tails of the shirts, the shorts, and I think the socks. Now, that's begging. Yeah, that's all that is. That's begging. That's not the fun of the fair. That's begging. And the idea that football gives a flying flip-flop for small people and small clubs is something that needs to be absolutely stamped out, because it never, ever has. And I did a thing on my own video thing about the business that the BBC would go to some FA Cup game and they'd say, oh, we're here at Hartlepool, ladies, and this is Malcolm, and he mows the grass. And you've been here for 60 years, haven't you, Doris? Yes, this is the original tea bag. And all this nonsense. And they don't care. And they wish everybody well, and they go home again, and they don't care. And this week it was announced that DAZN, who are an Austrian, German and Canadian broadcaster, boxing fans will know the name, are looking to move into the UK. And the CEO spoke about the fact that you sell people local products. So you'd sell them the Premier League, a bit of cricket, he said, a bit of rugby.
Yeah, makes sense.
I didn't know I was good on that. It didn't get many hits because nobody cares. Nobody cares. Another subscription. You're being pillaged and plundered, left, right and centre, and you do nothing. They knocked down our spiritual home.
Yeah.
And all you did...
There is no way.
All you did was you drooled over videos
how
of
did the Haringey
girders.
community benefit? Because, that was going to be the gig, wasn't it?
They haven't. They haven't. That
and everybody who lives there will benefit.
Yeah. Well, I say to people who talk about Haringey, a very straightforward question. Tell me how a pour door works. And most people get really, really angry about that because they have to Google it, and it gives them a whole girth of information, which is tiresome because people these days can't be bothered to read more than the 2 paragraphs. And a pour door is where you build a brand new flat or apartment block or whatever it is, and you have a communal garden area, except for the kids on benefits, the families on welfare, to put it into modern parlance. They're not allowed to play in there.
No.
And they get to come and go by a separate entrance. So as you're walking out in your brand new shoes from River Island and your rubbish suit from Next, but you're feeling good about the world because you're keeping up your payments on your car, and you can say to yourself as you fall asleep at night on your polymix bedding that you're middle class and you're part of the gentrification, you don't have to bump into, God forbid, somebody who isn't quite at your level, but their family has come from that place and they're part of the local community. And so the local community has not benefited.
Who, by the way, the vast majority of whom now in Haringey are BAME.
Well,
if you really care...
Yeah, if you really care, you wouldn't have David Lammy as your MP, because you'd be able to tell the difference between night and day. You know, you'd be able to tell the difference between nice fresh milk and off milk. You know, this guy is
Get almond milk. It's so much better.
But this guy, nobody cares. Nobody cares. But this guy is nuts.
I do.
But they and of course it was Lammy. And bear in mind the names I was called. But tell you what, kids, if you don't like me, I'm a lot more palatable than a bunch of Marxists. Well, a private business. Yep, that's right. Archway Steel. A private business were told to get lost.
Yeah.
Here's a compulsory purchase order.
Burned down, didn't it?
That was a mystery.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that was a mystery. No, that had nothing to do with the unchecked abuse that they were given online that was turned into something that was fashionable. It had nothing to do with the total disregard of the council and of the football club. And it had nothing to do with the fact that David Lammy, to the best of my knowledge, I was told by Mr. Joseph himself, never crossed the threshold. And those people, as he punches the printer, you've done nothing wrong now, but you will do. That's how to work with printers, is preventative aggression. But the what's wrong with you?
No,
Please don't laugh at things I say. It's very disconcerting. But the whole situation, and lo and behold, woof, and the place burns down. But the whole thing for the community and the people of Haringey, this has not been a force for good. Absolute nonsense.
Oh, but there's so much that our Supporters Trust has achieved.
Oh, God. What a bunch of oddball Marxists they are. I actually sat through, and somebody will feed this back to them, although they blocked me.
The red flag flying.
Yeah. Oh, don't. These chummy oddballs. That's as nasty as I can be.
Boing.
They governance. All we've had from them is this stream of bureaucratic whining. And I have to say, I take enormous pleasure in, I think, because I'm deranged, obviously, I'm nuts, and they're balanced, and they're sane, and where they are is where normal, respectable people operate. Okay, so let's not make any mistakes here. But I spent a fair bit of time telling them that they were rubbish, and they were irrelevant, and they were paying lip service to an organisation that wouldn't even let them clean their toilet. Right? Yeah, come in, tell us what you think of the biscuits this week, and then cock off out of it. Yeah? Because you're rubbish. And we're just getting you in, so we're going through the motions. And it's got to a point where even they managed to work out that, because they had not been consulted on anything, they were whining about not being consulted about the cup final on Sunday, and the threat of COVID and all this nonsense that they were suddenly moral guardians
But
of.
we've been allowed to have some nice flags in the stadium.
With fire retard, you can't use the word retardant and the Supporters Trust in the same phrasing, because it leaves things open to misinterpretation. They're not retardant, and I'm not suggesting, because I know some of you very easily suggest that you set fire to them either. Okay, do not take advantage of their lack of retardancy thing. What they are. So these people have now issued a fatwa on Levy that he has got to resign from his own business and then appoint some other people. That's my stomach.
Is
That's
it your
shocking.
stomach? It sounded like a plane flying overhead.
Yeah, a very small, hungry plane. A plane that is thinking about the mixed grill from last night's Indian still in the fridge.
Well, I didn't eat all the wraps you made me. Do you want a wrap?
No, I don't. They were disgusting.
You should just eat it.
Most of it fell on the floor at one stage.
Fluffles, lovely.
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
But yeah, so they've declared war on rational thought, and they're demanding that the board has a change of people. And if you look at the Tottenham Hotspur,
We might as well be called Hotspur.
Well, there are less charitable anagrams to be made, but because it is the year of the cock, apparently, according to the merchandising initiative.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's been 100 years of cock we've had. That's their words, not mine. I'm only reading what they've printed.
That sounds really sore and painful.
Yeah. So anyway, and if you don't ask me, just look at any press image of Donna Cullen, and I'll tell you everything. But the deal there is that you've only got you've got 2.5 executive directors because Mr. Matthew Collicott, forgive me, I don't know the gentleman's name. He's the finance director, so that's, it is executive, but he's not exactly like. But anyway, you've only got those two. You've got Ms. Cullen and Mr. Levy. And then you've got a series of other people who, they come and go. There've been different people over the last sort of decade, maybe as many as half a dozen, occupying the other spaces. So removing those two from the field of play isn't actually going to achieve very much because it's owned, in part, by Levy. So this is like, I don't even know. There isn't even an analogy as weird that I can come up with, that you're going to a private business and saying to them, governance, moral outrage, fire retardant flags, and we want you to go and work in the loading bay or put you on some sort of gardening leave, and then you're going to pick some other people from within your organisation, that doesn't work. You're not going to get Sue from accounts suddenly become the CEO of THFC.
So, from communism to anarchy.
Yeah, in one, and there's now a petition. Sorry, I'm actually realised I'm starving, and my lower intestine has begun eating my upper intestine, which is rather uncomfortable.
It's an attractive look.
Yeah.
Along with the squeak of the chair, which can't be annoying the listeners at all.
Most of them switched off about 20 minutes ago. It's all right. It's gone.
Should we just tell them that? Okay.
No, but I tell you what, we'll act like nothing's gone wrong.
Okay.
And that's the best way to front this out.
We shall continue being professionals.
Yeah. So today, this is the perfect storm for millennials. We now have a supporter anarchy initiative, which is a petition to inflict the 50+1 rule for professional football club ownership in the UK. So if you want to have this explained to you, you're going to need to go online and Google it. All I'm going to tell you is, as heartwarming a notion this as might be, the game in this country isn't vaguely structured like the Bundesliga.
No.
So this is a bit like saying, I quite like food I get from, shops that sell world food. I like, Jewish food. I like bagels. I like challah bread. But there's a big difference between that and turning around and saying, well, do you know something? Those onion platzels I had this morning were absolutely outstanding. Let's turn this place into a kibbutz. Right? I go and get flatbreads from the east end of a city near us, and they're amazing. But I don't really want to involve myself in the religious and cultural aspects of the parts of the world those things come from. I'm very happy to cherry pick and have a nice nodding relationship with the vendors of them. But this business, so you can cherry pick a rule or an operations procedure that another league has and enforce it under the guise of governance and God knows what else upon, again, private individual businesses. And I think this is one of the things that got overlooked in the hubbub when Spurs were looking to sell this to the fan base, the stadium and this, that and the other. The fans couldn't believe it. We'd be able to look like a really credible club. So yeah, bleep everybody, let's build this thing. Throw little old ladies and people push chairs out the way and let's build this thing. And I made the point at the time, endlessly, that this wasn't about, we why don't we, there's a few businesses around here that are going to have to be a bit of disruption. They're going to have to moved or whatever, because we're building a heart and lung hospital specialist unit for small children, for infants. We're putting in, we've found a way of putting in 50 CAT scan machines. We're really going to hoover up an awful lot of unpleasantness and sadness from the world here. So there's going to be a little bit of, on the water, a few ripples as we do that. But it was never like that. This was a private business saying to itself, well, we can only sell 36,000 seats or whatever it is, and now we want to sell 62,000 seats. There was no nice side to this. This was just this is like getting a knock on the door in the middle of the night saying, we need to interview you, and then we're going to put you in a prison cell. There's no way of gilding this appalling activity, this aggressiveness. And now we've got people, like we say, these millennials and blah, 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 who they're crying in the streets that, that somebody's tried to tweak the nature of the capitalism that they're involved in.
Mm-hmm. If you support a football club, well, sorry, but you can't do that outside of capitalism. Not in this country.
No. And you can't, even if you go and support a local team where players either don't cost very much or don't cost anything at all, the reason they're set up, there is a little kernel of good there that people want to, bring kids in, and, it helps cut down crime and makes communities better and all that business. But by the same token, you make money selling people hot dogs or vegan burgers or whatever the deal might be. There's a bit of merchandise goes on, and everybody who's operating in a small level, and let's go back to Marine FC, operating in a club which has one building for everybody to change in and buy merch and use the toilet or whatever, and then the pitch is 10 foot from somebody's back garden. All of those clubs ideally would like to be Spurs, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. None of them say, oh, no, we're very happy here. It's like saying somebody with an allotment wouldn't want to own Whole Foods and have their pick of every organic vegetable grown on the planet, and sell Japanese beer and, wasabi peanuts and whatever. So that's the end of the show. Well, almost. I want to thank McDonald's, who reached out and offered some free food, but our postcode isn't amenable, so I was able to reroute it to a colleague of mine who is getting delivered some free food during the cup final tomorrow.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and they didn't ask anything back. They didn't ask for a link back in the blog. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't say, can you mention it on your podcast? They didn't say, so I'm just thanking them on behalf, because I don't know, everybody's had a really tough time of it, and the guy that's getting a few meals arrived to his house, he'll be very grateful. We all would. It's a nice gesture, and like I say, it came completely without any strings. So, thanks for that, and good luck to them.
I, for one, wish Dominic Cummings well, and in the meantime...
You can't say what I was about to say in this country anymore on air. You'd be arrested. Keep it Tottenham!
Well done. You made it through to the end. Do us a favour. Like, rate, review, subscribe. And tell your friends about us, because they've not been through enough this last year. Cheers, guys. Keep it Tottenham.